She said it so casually, like she was talking about the weather. But it stuck. Lodged somewhere between my ribs and my throat. I was halfway under the hood of a '98 Honda when she walked in. Not the kind of customer who blends into the smell of oil and the buzz of the fluorescent lights. She didn't belong in a repair shop. Her hair was pulled back in a way that said I'm busy. But I still know exactly what I look like. And her coat looked like it cost more than everything in my apartment combined. "Is Mark around?" she asked. I slid out from under the hood, grease on my hands, probably a smudge on my cheek. Mark's on a parts run. You can leave the keys, though." She tilted her head slightly. "You're Ethan, right?" I nodded, though I couldn't remember us meeting before. Then it clicked. She was Hannah's mom. Hannah, my ex from last summer. We hadn't exactly ended on friendly terms. Her gaze was steady, a little too steady. The kind of look that makes you check if you've got something on your face. "I just wanted to make sure the car gets looked at before the weekend," she said, handing me the keys. Her fingers brushed mine, maybe by accident. Her nails were short, no polish, but neat. I noticed things like that more than I should. There was a pause, longer than normal for a simple key handoff. She didn't fill it, and neither did I. "You're not still seeing her, right?" she asked suddenly. I shook my head. "No, haven't talked in months." That's when she smiled. Not a happy smile. More like she just confirmed something she suspected. "She'll never know what we had," she said, almost under her breath. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. What we had. Before I could ask, she was already turning toward the door. "Thanks, Ethan. I'll pick it up tomorrow." The glass door swung shut behind her, leaving the smell of her perfume hanging in the air. It didn't belong here any more than she did. Something warm, faintly citrus, but with this grounded, woodsy edge. It reminded me of, I don't know, standing too close to someone in a small kitchen at night. The rest of the day, I kept catching myself glancing at the keys she'd left on the counter. A little brass charm dangled from the ring, shaped like a lighthouse. The kind of thing you buy on vacation. The kind of thing you hold onto for years. When Mark got back, I asked him about the car. "Needs a new belt," he said, flipping through the work order. "Owner's a good tipper. Don't screw it up." I didn't mention the other thing. Didn't mention her. After closing, I found myself walking slower to my truck. The street was quiet. The kind of quiet where every sound feels amplified. The crunch of gravel under my boots, the soft clink of my keys. She'd left so quickly, like she hadn't meant to say it out loud, but she had said it. And now I couldn't stop replaying it. The way her voice had dipped, like the words meant more than she wanted to explain. Maybe she'd been talking about something else entirely. Maybe I'd imagined the way she'd looked at me. But that night, lying on my couch with the TV on mute, I kept hearing it again, her voice low and deliberate. "She'll never know what we had." Like I missed something, or maybe wanted something. The next day, she came just before closing. The shop was quiet, Mark already gone. The air still heavy with the day's heat and the faint tang of motor oil. She stood at the counter, glancing at her phone. A pair of reading glasses perched low on her nose. They made her look softer, like someone I hadn't met yesterday. "I didn't want to leave it another day," she said, sliding her card across the counter. Her voice was steady, but her shoulders seemed tense, as if she'd had to brace herself to walk in. I processed the payment slower than necessary, partly because the ancient register took its time, partly because I wanted to keep her here just a little longer. "You, work nearby?" I asked. "Not anymore." She smiled faintly, but there was something off about it. Too quick, like she didn't want me to notice the edges. "Freelance now," which is just a polite way of saying at home too much. I nodded, not sure if she wanted me to laugh or not. While she signed the receipt, I noticed her hands. No rings. The faintest nick on one knuckle, like she'd cut herself cooking. They moved quickly, but there was a slight tremor when she passed the pen back. "You okay?" I asked before I could stop myself. Her eyes flicked up, sharp for a second, then softened. Just tired, she said. The kind of tired that didn't have much to do with sleep. We stepped outside together, her car parked by the curb. I popped the hood to show her what we'd fixed. She leaned in beside me, her hair falling forward. A single strand caught on the chain around her neck, and without thinking, I almost reached to free it. Almost. She noticed. I could tell by the way she shifted, just enough to put a sliver of air between us. "Thanks for taking care of it," she said, closing the hood. Her tone was warmer now, but still careful, like she didn't want to leave the door too far open. I offered to walk her around the block, just to make sure the belt wasn't squealing, but she shook her head. "I'll be fine. You've probably got better things to do." I didn't, but I let her have that out. As she got into the car, she laughed softly at something on her phone. It wasn't a happy laugh, more like an old habit, a reflex. She adjusted her mirrors, hands pausing on the wheel for a second too long before starting the engine. The streetlights cast a pale glow over her face, catching the faintest crease at the corner of her mouth. She looked at me like she wanted to say something, but didn't, and that silence felt louder than words. Started raining just after 9. Not the kind of rain that makes you run for cover. More like the steady kind that seeps into everything if you stand still too long. I just locked up the shop when I saw her car parked across the street. Headlights off, wipers swiping slow. She waved me over through the passenger side window. "Engine light came back on," she said, voice muffled through the glass. "Thought you might still be here." We pulled into the garage together. I didn't bother with the overhead lights, just the single lamp over my workbench. It threw a warm, tight circle into the otherwise dim space. She leaned against the counter, watching while I checked the code reader. "Loose connection," I said after a minute. "Nothing serious." She nodded, but didn't move to leave. The rain softened against the roof, the kind of sound that makes you forget how much time is passing. She glanced around, eyes landing on an old coffee mug I kept by the bench. "That yours?" "Yeah. My mom bought it for me in high school. Ugly as hell, but..." I shrugged. She smiled, really smiled this time, and something shifted. Not a big thing, just enough to feel it. "You're lucky," she said. "My mom never remembered things like that." Her voice dipped, and I could tell she hadn't meant to say it out loud. I leaned back against the hood of her car. "You talk to her much?" She shook her head, eyes flicking down to her hands. "Not for years." And for a second, I wanted to tell her something. Something real about my own family, about what I'd run from. But the moment felt too fragile. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She picked it up, glanced at the screen, and let it go dark again. No explanation, no change in expression. But her jaw tightened just enough for me to notice. Outside, the rain picked up again. She stepped closer to see the code reader screen, close enough that her sleeve brushed mine. Neither of us moved away. "This thing's fine," I said, voice lower than I meant. "I believe you." Her eyes held mine longer than they should have. Something was there, heavy in the air, making it hard to think about anything else. My hand twitched against the hood, halfway to hers, not quite touching. Her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, then back at me. Whatever was on her face was part decision, part something I couldn't name. "You should go now," she said quietly. And I did. But only my body left that room. She came by the shop again, but not for the car this time. It was late, the kind of late where the streets start to feel hollow, and the only light comes from the faded neon open sign I hadn't bothered to turn off. "Am I interrupting?" she asked, stepping inside before I could answer. I shook my head. "Just cleaning up." She didn't bring coffee or a bag of groceries or any excuse. She just stood there, hands in the pockets of her coat, eyes scanning the room like she was trying to memorize it. "You've been quiet," she said finally. I didn't know what she meant. Quiet in the shop, quiet around her, or quiet about the way I kept thinking about the sound of her laugh when she thought no one was listening. "You've been hard to read," I said back, and it came out sharper than I meant. She leaned against the counter, not meeting my eyes. "Ethan, what are we doing?" The question hit harder than I expected. Not because I had an answer, but because I didn't. I put down the rag in my hands. "I don't know," I admitted. "I don't know if I'm supposed to." For a moment, neither of us moved. The shop felt too quiet, like even the rain outside had stopped to hear us. She sighed, small but heavy. "This, whatever this is, it's not supposed to be." "Then why are you here?" I asked before I could stop myself. Her gaze finally lifted, and it was like being caught in a beam of light I hadn't realized I'd been standing in. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. "Because you see me," she said. Then softer. "And I don't know what to do with that." I felt something in my chest shift, slow and inevitable, like a gear locking into place. "You think I know what to do with it?" My voice cracked just enough to betray me. We stared at each other for what felt like too long, both of us waiting for the other to move, to break, to say something that would make it easier to leave. Her phone was on the counter between us. It lit up with a name I didn't recognize. She didn't reach for it. Neither did I. "You could just walk away," I said quietly. She smiled, but it wasn't joy. It was something else, something tired and almost afraid. "You say that like it's easy." Another long silence. Not awkward, just loaded. I took a step closer, not touching her, not even sure why. Just close enough to feel the space between us shrink. She didn't say anything, just looked at me, like she was already mourning something we never even had. I wasn't expecting to see her that night. I was halfway through changing the oil on an old truck when the shop door creaked open. And there she was, hair damp from the mist outside, coat draped over her arm instead of on her shoulders. "You're still here," she said, more observation than question. I wiped my hands on a rag. "Truck's stubborn." She didn't smile, just set her keys on the counter and stood there like she was deciding whether to leave. "I found something," she said finally. From her coat pocket, she pulled out a small envelope, edges worn, the flap loose. She held it like it might burn her. I thought maybe I'd throw it out, but I didn't. I didn't ask what it was. Whatever it held, it wasn't mine to pry into. But she opened it anyway and slid a photo across the counter. A man, maybe late 20s, smiling beside a lake. He had the same unruly hair I get when I forget to cut it, same half grin I see in the mirror some mornings. "That was 10 years ago," she said. "His name was Daniel." I waited. "He was younger than me too." She paused like she'd said more than she meant. "Car accident." I still don't know why I keep this picture. The air felt heavier. I didn't know if she was telling me because I reminded her of him, or because she wanted me to know she'd already lost someone who looked at her the way I sometimes catch myself looking at her. "I'm sorry," I said quietly, because there wasn't anything else that wouldn't sound cheap. She nodded, eyes fixed on the photo. "When I saw you that first day, I didn't know if I wanted to run or just stand there and let it happen. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips, though I hadn't moved. "I'm not him," I said. Came out sharper than I meant, but I needed it said. Her eyes met mine, steady now. "I know, but sometimes I forget that." The shop's old fridge hummed in the corner. Outside, a truck passed, its headlights briefly spilling through the open door before fading again. She reached for the photo, but instead of sliding it back into the envelope, she left it on the counter between us. "Maybe you should keep it." "I don't think I can anymore." I didn't pick it up right away. It felt like taking it would mean stepping into a place I wasn't ready for. She stepped back, but her face had changed. Not softer exactly, but less guarded. She took a breath like she hadn't allowed herself to in years. And for the first time, she looked at me without fear. It was one of those winter nights where the cold cuts through everything, no matter how many layers you wear. I just finished locking up when I saw her waiting in her car across the street. Engine off, windows fogged faintly from her breath. She rolled the window down. "You hungry?" We ended up in the back corner of a quiet diner, the kind with cracked leather booths and a jukebox no one uses anymore. A single fluorescent light flickered above us. She stirred her coffee without drinking it, her eyes on the swirl of cream. "I keep telling myself this isn't going to happen," she said finally. I set my fork down. "And?" Her mouth curved into something between a smirk and a wince. "And here I am." We didn't talk much after that. The silence wasn't heavy, not like it had been before. It was the kind where every sound feels sharper. The clink of her spoon, the slow pull of her breath, the faint hum of the refrigerator behind the counter. When we left, the cold hit us again. I walked her to her car, my hands deep in my jacket pockets, not trusting myself to let them do what they wanted. She leaned against the driver's side door, her breath rising in quick clouds. "Ethan?" I looked at her, waiting. "I don't know what this is," she said softly, "but I know I'm not scared of it anymore." That was it. No grand confession. No cinematic kiss in the snow. Just those words, and the way they settled into me like they'd been waiting for a place to land. I stepped closer. Not enough to touch, just close enough to see the small flecks of gold in her eyes. The ones you can only notice when someone lets you. She didn't move when I reached up and brushed a strand of hair from her face. My hand lingered at her temple for a second longer than it needed to, her eyes never leaving mine. We stood like that for what felt like a long time, not holding hands, not kissing, just there. And in that space, something unspoken passed between us. Something that didn't need a label or an explanation. She opened her door but didn't get in right away. "You'll lock up." I nodded. She touched my hand briefly, warm against the cold air, before sliding into the driver's seat. No goodbye, no promises, just that small touch that said everything without saying anything. I watched her drive away until the taillights disappeared around the corner. She didn't say she loved me, but she let her guard down, and that was louder than any "I love you" ever could be. It's been months since that night in the diner parking lot. We never made some grand decision. We didn't need to. She started showing up more, sometimes with no reason at all. Dropping off a thermos of coffee on cold mornings. Sitting in the corner of the shop with a book while I worked. Some days we talked about nothing. Other days we drift into the kind of conversations you don't realize are important until they're over. The things you've never told anyone because you didn't think they'd listen. What's strange is, I don't think either of us became someone different. She's still guarded with most people. Still disappears into her own world when she's tired. I'm still figuring out what I want out of life. Still bad at knowing when to keep my mouth shut. But there's this quiet place we built between us. A place where neither of us has to pretend. I used to think love was about big moments. Flashy, undeniable, the kind of thing you could point to and say, that's when it happened. With her, it's been the opposite. It's been in the pauses. In the way she always remembers how I take my coffee. In the look she gives me when I'm rambling and she's pretending not to smile. Sometimes I catch her watching me, not with the guarded look she had at the start, but with something warmer. Like she's still surprised I'm here, and maybe a little relieved. And yeah, there are still days when I wonder if she's thinking about him, the man in the photo. But I've stopped letting that scare me. I'm not here to replace anyone. I'm just here. We never told Hannah. Maybe someday it'll come up, maybe it won't. But the truth is, this was never about anyone else. It was about her and me and this quiet thing we let grow between us, even when we thought we shouldn't. The day she finally let me hold her hand without pulling away, it didn't feel like a victory. Felt inevitable, like the end of a long walk where you suddenly realize you've arrived. If you told me a year ago that my ex's mom would be the person who made me feel the most seen, I'd have laughed. Now, it just feels like the only thing that makes sense. Because love doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it's a slow-burning ember, the kind you keep alive through long nights, knowing it's worth it when the morning comes. And for us, morning came quietly. No fanfare, just her hand in mine, steady and warm. So yeah, she never said she loved me, but she didn't have to. And if you've ever had someone like that, someone who showed you what it means to be really seen, tell me about it. I think we could all use more stories like that.